So by way of intro, and just getting a perspective of what we're doing in the 48 ways, the Mishnah teaches that the 48 ways to acquire the Torah. Acquiring the Torah is assimilating information, acquiring. Oh, how nice to see you. It's acquiring information of anything, really, not just Torah, in a way that it becomes truly a part of you, and it becomes second nature to you. I mean, you find a person that is a professional, let's say a doctor or whatever. A doctor, he studies medicine with such a desire and such a, I mean, it's a serious study, you know. Or even let's say an airplane pilot. So an airplane pilot, I mean, you have to know how to fly an airplane. So my Rebbe used to do this. Here's a good one from Rabbi Block. You'll enjoy this one. Rabbi Block, my Rebbe Zichron Levrach, used to say as follows: I will give you $25,000 free if you will build a bridge and not be an architect. All right? I will give you $50,000 if you fly an airplane without flying lessons. No interested takers? $100,000, $250,000 for anybody that will perform open heart surgery without going to medical school. Crazy. Fact of the matter is that doing those three things requires schooling. And not just general schooling, extensive schooling. Building a bridge, people are going to be going over it. God forbid people could fall down. You're doing open heart surgery, flying an airplane. These are serious things. You want to make sure that your pilot knows that airplane backwards and forwards like he knows his address. And the same thing with a doctor. Trust a doctor with your health. Right? You have to really feel that it's not just a piece of information that he learned. Imagine you took a course in whatever, and you didn't do so well in the course. You even failed the course. Then you get your degree in the course anyway, and you don't know what you're doing, or maybe you know, but you know it superficially. You don't know it in depth, so to speak. You wouldn't want to hire such a person. An accountant. Either he knows it well, deep inside him, second nature. You want to know your particular job, like you can push a button on a cell phone and get the right number of the person you're interested in. That's the idea of knowing something. Assimilating information inside you that it's second nature to you, that it's like brushing your teeth. Well, that is the way you have to live. And my Rebbe, Rabbi Block, would say the following. He would say, you're not willing to fly an airplane without flying lessons, and you're not willing to perform open heart surgery, and yet you're willing to live without learning how to live. That's pretty dumb. Living, in the bottom line, at the end of the day, is harder than flying an airplane and doing open heart surgery. I can't do this. It's harder than flying. This is harder than heart surgery. It's ridiculous. The stupidest thing I've seen. I can't get the volume down. Okay. No, shut up.
That'll do it.
It's okay, Google, shut up.
Yeah, voice command.
The voice command, right? So the bottom line is that living in this world, navigating life, if we're really serious about it, is harder than flying an airplane, performing open heart surgery, and building a bridge combined. That's how serious life is. How successful we can be, not just in our jobs, but in living as a human being, as a person, being happy, fulfilled, contented, being able to manage a family, being able to live like a human being, like a mensch. So again, do we take life seriously? Of course, we believe in Judaism that we have a religion is a way of life. It's not just a religion. Maybe Goyim have a religion in which they practice it on Sunday, or Arabs on Friday. We're not just Saturday people. We're all every day. Every moment of our lives is dictated by our religion. So if that's the case, our religion is a way of life. It's the way we do things. It's an attitude. It's a feeling, a perspective. It's the way we respond to issues. A person has this problem, that problem, whatever it is. The Torah, the Judaism is going to have what to say about it, and make it give you some direction. So if that's the case, we want to learn how to live. We need to learn how to do it. So of course, Rabbi would say, Rabbi Block would say, listen, you want to go make a living? Go to college. Well, learn how to do that. Learn how to make a living? Go to college. You want to learn how to live? Come to me. Come to the yeshiva. We'll teach you how to live. And that's how we understand the relative responsibility, the relative relationship between Judaism and Jewish learning and secular learning. That's how we understand it. This is what you need to do to get a job. This is what you need to do to be successful at the job. That's the idea. So, of course, in learning how to live, we use the Torah as our source. And in learning how to live, using the Torah as a source, is the concept that Torah is a Torat Chaim. It's a way of life, an introduction to life, and instructions for life. It's the way we're going to learn how to really master the task and make life really, really happy. I mean, it's an own fact. I mean, you see all the people out there in the world today, and again, seeking every entertainment under the sun. Go down Hollywood Boulevard right now, and there's thousands of people going to thousands of clubs and thousands of different entertainment factors. They're all miserable. We know that, right? You see all these famous actors and actresses, all with fame and fortune, right, and load of money. And they're all miserable. They're married 4 times, 5 times, and half of them are committing suicide. Well, what's the point here? How do we learn how to live? Our Torah gives us a method, but the question is, how do we learn the Torah? How do we get the Torah? Not just to learn the information, but how do we assimilate it inside our bones that we really believe it's true and it's the way to go, and how do I manage to do it? So we said off the top, you got to learn how to think. Because thinking is the essence of human existence. The difference between the human being and the animal is thinking. We can think. We can figure things out. We can make decisions. We can define what we want to do, what we don't want to do. So therefore, the first 9 steps we learned about was learning how to think, learning how to process information, learning how to make a commitment to that information, and to really working with it and living by it. After that thought, we went on to what was called there were 9 steps in the areas of thinking, and we went forward to 3 more steps in social life. We felt that once a person develops the intellect, there's a next step to on the silent sheet. We didn't make one. Make one up. Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. No, the first class.
Yeah.
The sheets.
The sheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot mine.
I don't have one with me.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's a quick start. Okay. Thinking. Be open-minded. Be willing to hear. The very first step. Secondly, understand what you're hearing. Do you understand? Are you asking questions? Are you figuring it out? Number 3, express it within yourself, to your friends. Share it. See if it works. See if it makes sense. Fourthly, if it does, truly understand it to the extent we will try it. You will implement it. So we gave an example. Someone called me up and said, I found a nice girl for you to meet. So I said, I'm open. Secondly, tell me more about her so that I can understand. Thirdly, I shared it with some of the people to see what they felt about it. And fourthly, I went out on a date. You get it? And that's how the basic discipline of learning how to think. And you try and you explore and you try to work things out and try to make things work for yourself, you know. So socializing or social life became a very major issue, which we discussed 2 weeks ago, because in social disciplines, the real goal is, again, to assimilate more information, to share information. And to share it means to share it with other people. And there were 3 basic people you share with. You share with people that are older than you, younger than you, smarter than you, less smarter than you, and then with equals, with a peer group. Obviously, the peer group is the healthiest relationship, and that's the relationship of husband and wife, right? That's the relationship where you give and you take, and you feel good about that. You enjoy giving, but you enjoy taking. You enjoy taking because you enjoy giving. There's a mutuality. With children or parents or teachers and students, that doesn't exist, because the teacher's usually giving and the children and the students are usually taking. And therefore, we got to compensate for that and learn how to maximize those relationships. And we learned how to do that by making the students give back and making the teachers learn how to receive. That was some of the disciplines we had studied up until now. So, in learning how to grow in life, and by the way, I mean, when we talk about social life, how many people have heard the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know? You know, hear that one? It's true. You really do have to, learn how to network and make friends and meet people and work with people, have people, like you. And we're going to talk about that as how to become likable or even lovable, which we'll talk about in a couple of sessions from now. But the social life really is really important if you're to really make progress in whatever you want to do and whatever in living in general. I mean, certainly socially you got to get along with your wife, you get along with your husband. For goodness sake, I ain't gonna manage. And you got to learn how to raise the kids properly and have that good, healthy balance between discipline and allowing them to giving them some flexibility, not stifling them, not forcing them, not stopping them to breathe, so to speak. But certainly the permissibility of nowadays, it's totally crazy. I mean, high school children are coming to school with cell phones. Who ever heard of such a thing? It's insanity. Insanity. I never was a principal of a high school. Imagine it would be a war. But I was the principal of an elementary school. Now, I had middle school kids, 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders. By the time you're getting to the 7th, 8th grade, you're going to be wise guys. They're already telling you off, Who's going to listen to you, right? I had a 4th grader told me off, right? He didn't last long. Anyway, this 4th grader comes into my office. He says, what are you doing in the office? He says, my teacher sent me to the office. I was bad. I said, really? But he said, you can't punish me. I said, really? Why not? He said, because I got ADD. So I said to him, I don't care if you got A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You're going to get punished. I walked into a 5th grade. There was a rash of profanity in the 5th grade. They learned the dirty words, I walked into that class with 2 bars of soap in my hand. I said, any child that tries profanity again, let me tell you, this is what you're looking at. And then the 8th graders were playing basketball. Well, now, every time the 8th graders are going to play basketball, they're all excited about playing the game, and they want to score. And when a kid misses the basket, he says, oh, shh. Well, every time he tried that, you know what happened? I was ref in the game. Technical, you lose. Technical foul, the other team shoots. Keep on saying that, you're going to lose the game. Very simple. The indulgences have got to stop. Anyway, we talked about education as the next step in moving and developing. A person grows stimulated by information and excitement of exposure and making a lot of friends and being involved socially, and is growing as a person, growing with his knowledge, now get himself an education, go to school. So we talked about getting a Torah education, we defined it. We defined what Torah is all about. Learning the written Torah, the oral Torah, and learning what's necessary to really achieve a true religious sense of God, religious sense of your people, and a religious sense of self. And that's where we're at. Now, basically, to be perfect, and those are 15 of the 48 ways. And basically, if you really want to know, the system ends here. You don't really need to do much more after this. Now go out there and make yourself a success. You're a thinking person, an alert person. You're intelligent. You're perceptive, and you've got a host of friends and good relationships, family and outside family, and you've got a great education. What more is there to do? But Judaism says, and the 48 Ways says, that now you're going to face challenges. And the question is, how to face challenges. That's the basic next step. And there are two challenges that are faced. And they're called physical challenges and mental challenges. That's the basic the challenges to face. And the idea is that with all the growth and success you've achieved up until now through your thinking and through your social life and through your education, you're not really equipped to handle the challenges of what the outside world has, particularly in physical and mental areas. So let me show you the list of the physical challenges that we face and young people face in their quest for a good life, and the mental challenges as well, focusing tonight purely on the physical. The 48 Ways says, ways 16 through 21. The first physical challenge in Hebrew is called schorah. What is schorah? Business. What is business? Money. Money is a major challenge. The challenge of money is one that, and the need for it, so to speak, and these are all needs, so to speak, can interrupt your pursuit of growth. The next is called derech eretz. What is derech eretz? Derech eretz is basically the way of the land. How do we live in this world? The basic understanding of life in this world is two understandings. You have to make a living, you have to get a family. That's how you live in the world. So it's not talking about making a living, it's talking about making a family, because the one about making a living was number 16. Schorah was about making a living. So 17 is 17 is family life. 18 is oneg. Oneg is pleasure. What is pleasure? Basic understanding of pleasure, of the usage of the word oneg in Hebrew, really means food. V'karatala Shabbat oneg, call Shabbat pleasure. What it really means is have a lot of meals. Shabbat, that's what it means. Shabbat pleasure. That's why you have 3 meals. You know, it's interesting about Shabbat, just for your own information, to digress for a second. We say, the Gemara says that Mi she'ein lo mazon bet seudot hu ani sheba'aniyim v'nichnas l'tamchui. If a man doesn't have enough money to buy 2 meals on a given day, he's so poor, he's considered poor of the poorest to the extent where he's allowed entry into the free kitchen. That means that basically a man needs 2 meals a day to live. If he can't afford a third, big deal. But 2 he's got to have. Shabbat therefore stands out as special because Shabbat has 3 Sudah Shlishit, Shalosh Sudah. So oneg means food. And food is a challenge. 4th is called Shena, which in Hebrew means sleep. Sleep is a challenge. The next one is called Sicha, speech, talking. And we'll find out about that in a moment as well. And Schok is the last one, levity, laughing, joking. These are called physical challenges. And the answer of the 48 ways to every one of these challenges is called miyut. What's miyut mean? A little bit. But the word little bit means as follows, that if you were to practice abstinence on any of these factors, you're a failure. You have to have them. On the other hand, if you indulge overly in them, you're equally a failure. So obviously we can understand that if a priest doesn't get married, he's a failure in their affairs. On the other hand, if you're out there in Hollywood Boulevard at every brothel in town, you're also a failure. So the point is, miut means a little bit. The little bit doesn't mean that it's not a compromise. Well, don't do too much. It's just to suggest that if you do a little bit, it is positive, it's powerful, it's achieving, it's a good thing. When you abstain, it's bad. When you have too much, it's bad. But if you have the right amount, you're doing just fine. That's the way to go. So let's talk about, for instance, working. So if you're a workaholic, we're teaching that you're a failure because you haven't got a life. Where's your wife? Where's your kids? Where's your family? Where's your recreation? You can't have a whole life just absorbed with money and worried about money and concerned about it. I only got $2 million in the bank. I'm poor and I need to work. It's ridiculous. I need to work 6 days a week. I need to work 7 days a week. I know, listen, I know I'm a Jewish person. I realize Saturday's an important day, and I really mechabed the Shabbat, but I really gotta work. So that's an overindulgence. That's a failure. On the other hand, a man says, I don't gotta work. Hashem will take care of me. Hashem ain't gonna take care of you. Not if you don't try. If you do try, at the end of the day, Hashem is taking care of you. But you got to try. That's called in Hebrew, hishtadlut. You got to do your thing. So the bottom line is that in learning how to do that, you're doing the right thing. Should a person work properly between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday? Certainly. But he should not work on Shabbat. And that is cause for failure. That's because you're overwhelmed and overtaken and panic-stricken. And you can't work with panic. You gotta work with a clear mind. Think clearly. Now, everybody knows that life builds up pressures. And frankly, money is the biggest pressure there is. The need for money is man's greatest need. It's man's greatest drive. Now the second one is making a family, which frankly talks about intimate relations, sexual relations between husband and wife. Now, in that area, it's second to money. In other words, yes, sex is a great drive and a great need, but money is a big one. And that's reality, because the need for money and the need for power and the need for control and the need to buy and have and be able to have all the pleasures really are deeper inside a person than even the sexual drive. And it's really true. And that's why it's listed first. And that's why, again, the answer is moderation. Miut means, a little bit means moderation. That's the key word in English, moderation. Moderation means if it's done in moderation, you're going to be an outstanding success. If it's not done at all, it'll be a failure. If you, on the other hand, overdo it, you're equally a failure. So you could be a lazy person, get up late every day and not go to work on time. You could be a person who doesn't really work with the proper industriousness and the proper strength and the proper loyalty and the proper energy, and you're going to be a failure. Maybe you'll keep your job, maybe you won't, and even if you do, you're not going to rise in the ranks because you're not doing the proper thing. You're not moderating, you're not being moderate, you're being abstaining. I don't want to work. I want to go and play baseball. I want to go to the ponies. Guys who don't really take work seriously, obviously, they're going to fail. But the person that goes the opposite direction and gets overpowered with it to the point where I have to violate my own personal belief in my religion and go to work on Shabbat or on holidays. That's a person who's a slave. What kind of success is that? Or a person that says, I haven't got time to get home tonight, honey, to eat dinner with the kids because I got a late client. And the answer to that is, you tell your client, I'll meet you tomorrow. But the client, it's so important. I'm going to lose out. I'm desperate. He's got a lot of money. I need him. So, what can I do? I'm a slave. So in the middle of the class, I have to go out with my cell phone, and then, because why? Because I told the client, right? Unless Rabbi Block takes the phone. Middle of the class, guys call me up. Rabbi Block, here's a donation for your shul for $10,000. Call you back. And frankly, it's true. Imagine if someone called up and said, I want to give you this big donation. In my line of work, I'll tell you this, don't ever appear too anxious. Because he won't give it to you. And I'll tell you more, in any kind of work, if you really want to make a good impression on a client, never appear too anxious. Show interest, show desire, but don't get too over anxious. Don't let him see you panting. Right? Don't let him see that. Because then he knows he's got you. You know, Israel signed a peace accord with the PLO in 1993 in Oslo. Remember the world famous Oslo? The world infamous Oslo. Why was Oslo a failure? Oslo failed. More than 2,000-3,000 Jews died of terrorism ever since Oslo. Why did Oslo fail? You know why? Because the Arabs knew that the Jews were tired of war. And you can never show that. Yes, nobody wants to go to war. Nobody wants to fight. But don't show that to anybody. Don't let him know that. Because if he knows that, he's going to run ramshot all over you. Because they're ready to fight. They'll fight forever. Kind of worried sometimes that the Arabs are more dedicated to their cause than we are to our own. That's kind of scary. But make no mistake about it. You want to make peace? The way to make peace is be prepared to have strength. To show that, yes, if we don't agree, there is going to be war. And we're not afraid. We're not tired. And that's why whenever you want to make a deal, you have to appear that way as well. I mean, you're going to buy a house. I mean, it's the same thing. And frankly, this is the whole idea we want to try to get across about doing business properly. Miyut tzchora, moderation. Families cannot be overtaken. Shabbat cannot be overtaken. The needs of your own personal needs. You got an hour off and you go to the gym to just reinvigorate yourself, you got to do that. And frankly, let's say you do take a client to a business lunch, let's say, right? And you don't want to appear over anxious, like you say, right? But it's not out of place to buy him lunch. Why? Because what you're showing is that money is less valuable than your friendship. My friendship with you, my willingness to do business with you is more important than $50. How important is that gesture in winning a client? You can't imagine. Again, putting money in perspective. Yes, it's important. I need $50. But your friendship's worth more than that. You get it? So again, moderation is the name of the game, and certainly on a religious level, it means Shabbat overrides, it means Chagim override, it means even Friday afternoon overrides. So that you don't come into Shabbat hurried and unkempt and not dressed properly, and the house is not cleaned properly, and so forth. There has to be Friday Hachanot, the Friday preparations are as equally as important. Misha Tarach Berev Shabbat Yochal B'Shabbat. Only he who works hard on Friday to make it happen will have a Shabbat. And so therefore, these are things that have to be placed in priority, but at the same time, of value and money. Now, back in 1952, none of you were here, I was 5. I was 5. How much do you think a penny was worth in 1952?
A lot more than it is now.
I know that. Let's say a penny was worth maybe, let's say you could buy, for 2 cents, for 2 cents, you could probably buy, for a nickel, you could buy a chocolate bar. Let's put it in perspective, a nickel, okay? The story is told about the great Rabbi Aaron Cutler, the leading Rosh Yeshiva in America at the time. I mean, the man that simply fought with courage to establish Torah in its most extreme form as it was in Europe, and not to compromise, and demanded that from his students. And if you wanted to get into his yeshiva, you needed to be very, very committed to learning and full of energy in the studies of the yeshiva. The Baron Cutler was in the office for one moment, and in the office he saw the secretary put a stamp on an envelope, send out mail. People send out mail these days, only email, right? People send out email. They say that one of the persons of my age were toying with email, and the older man was on the computer, and he said, "I wonder if they deliver email on Sunday." Mail's mail, no? Anyway, Rabbi Cutler saw the person, the secretary of the yeshiva, sending out a letter in which she didn't have, she needed 7 cents postage in those days, and she didn't have the 2 available, so she put 2 5s on for 10 cents, and he chastised her. He said, 3 cents when you don't need it, and the yeshiva struggles for every dime, every penny. So understand, because it was worth more than it is today. What the Rosh Yeshiva was trying to teach is there's a value to money. Don't be a spendthrift. Don't throw it away. You're spending $50 on a client. Well, spend certainly $50 or $70 on your wife, but don't spend it frivolously on nonsense and foolish things. Be careful with your money, and and budget your money, and use your head. That's also part of moderation. So that we get a whole perspective here of using your head, using your mind, using your thinking, and which we've been taught how to do, and in so doing, living a good, healthy, productive, and successful life on a monetary level, on a financial level. One thing I might add is the absolute criminal act of jealousy. If you're jealous of what someone else got, and you're not satisfied with what you got in terms of doing the best you can, you're going to be so constantly upset, constantly stressed out, constantly angry at people, including your spouse. At the end of the day, you're striving for what someone else has, or to keep up with the Joneses, right? You will absolutely fail in this endeavor of being a successful businessman. A successful businessman in Judaism says moderation. One last story. Man is doing poorly at work. Goes to the Rebbe, says, "Rebbe, I got to do something. I'm on my way. I'm broke. I mean, no clients, no nothing." What are you checking out? What do you want to ask?
About jealousy. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was jealous of Yeshua.
Rebbe Akiva.
Akiva?
Yeah. but not a financial jealousy.
Oh, so it's in.
If you
I
listen,
mean,
if you found someone
if you're
there,
jealous of a scholar,
certain that's
jealousy
swell.
will make
That's
you
beautiful. That's beautiful because you'll attain that. But don't be jealous of, because remember,
monetary.
scholarship is within your ken. If you're jealous, then you can do that. But money's not. Money's up to God. So therefore, you got to do what you got to do, and do not all of a sudden load the moderation with excess and blow everything else because of it, and end up nowhere anyway. Last story. So got the story now.
Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Let's share
Man
our
with
take.
his Rebbe.
What?
Man with his Rebbe.
Oh yeah, the man's doing really poor, right? So he goes to the Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, help me out, and I need a piece of advice. He says, okay, I got the best piece of advice for you. At 12 o'clock in the middle of your day, close down your phone, open up Gemara, and learn. Rebbe, with all due respect, I mean, I'm doing poorly as is. And you want me to take an hour out of my work day and make my chances worse? So the Rebbe said, look, you want my advice? I'm telling you what to do. He goes to work the next morning, Monday morning, right? 9 to 12, he sits at his desk, not one phone call comes in. What the heck? Try the Rebbe. The man with the Rebbe got it right. What does he do? He closes down the phone, and he opens up the Gemara and starts to learn for an hour. Within 5 or 10 minutes, the phone starts to ring. Whoa. I promised the Rebbe. So he continues to learn. 15 minutes later, another phone. 10 minutes later, another phone. About 6 people called during that hour. So he responds to those 6 people after the hour's over, and he fills up 6 orders. Comes in the next day, 9 to 12, zip. Opens up the learning, this on the Chumash, and the next 5 minutes, another phone call, another phone call, another phone call. I don't know what's going on here. Goes back to the Rebbe and says, Rebbe, how did you know that if I would start to learn, that the phone would start to ring and the clients would call? Rebbe said, it's simple. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, wants you not to learn. If you start learning, he's going to do whatever he can to disturb you, including bringing those phone calls. Listen to the Rebbe. Anyway, that's the point of moderation. The next biggest drive in the human being, obviously, is the physical, the most physical of all, the sexual. Men for women, women for men, and you see that's exploited all over society, all over the movies and the magazines and billboards and so forth and so on. And the answer is not abstinence. Abstinence. That's not the answer. Well, I'm affected by all this. It's so horrible. It's so dehumanizing. Certainly dehumanizing to women, all this exploitation, all this exposure, and I don't know what to do. I'll retreat to a mountaintop in Europe or a mountaintop in Tibet and never look at a woman again. That's not the answer. Why not? Because God created the relationship between a man and a woman as the most beautiful thing. Because it can produce the most beautiful thing, a child. So God wants you to have sex by moderation. So what's moderation mean? So God, for a starter, creates a situation within the relationship where that there is absolutely no permission at all within Jewish law to have relations with a woman that you're not married to. Done. That simplifies matters off the top. No, there's more to it. Just because you get married and you have a wife doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Because every month there is a 12-day period that you're not permitted to be together. And all of a sudden, this abstinence creates a tremendous desire within the husband and wife for each other, so that when they are together, it's the most beautiful. All of a sudden, moderation what the world has totally indulged in becomes far more beautiful. And everybody knows again and again, excess kills it. You want to have a little drink, a little schnapps, a little chaim? No problem. A little excess, and you're drunk on the street. Now, there are certain things that there shouldn't even be anything at all, such as drugs, right? I mean, a little bit of that, and all of a sudden it turns into mushrooms into all sorts of garbage. Of course, when we talk about this, we can get into food real easy. Obesity versus against anorexia, right? So again, we have these two extremes. What is the 40 ways teaching us? No extremes, moderation. But it does tell us one other thing. When you do indulge or are involved, that's not to be moderated. In other words, Purim, great example. Now cite me the example. Now, if that's the case, and Purim is your excess for drinking, right? There has to be on the opposite level an excess of abstinence. What would that be?
Fast of Esther.
And Yom Kippur.
Or the fast of
Or the fast of Esther, because if you have one day connected to the other. So basically, you have this idea that anything that's really moderated has to be moderated with the control of where and when. And in that control, there is the realization that the involvement or the engagement and such is a positive thing. So if you are working, don't work moderately. Work excessively. Work with indulgence and work with energy. Person has relations with his wife with her husband. That should be a very not done in a manner in which there's reluctance, but rather done with desire, with pleasure, and with energy. Of course, one little rule about the pleasure factor when it comes to sex. One should not look for pleasure. One should look to give pleasure. And that is the greatest pleasure of all. When you know you've pleased the one you love, there is no greater pleasure. That's the ultimate pleasure. So again, at the same time, when there's abstinence. All the way. Like Yom Kippur, nothing. Such as, well, the Nida period, in which 12 days the husband and wife are separate. Not only is there no relations, there's no physical contact at all. There's no hugging, there's no kissing. What's the point? The point is that, once again, if you can master the control of knowing that it's not right now, this is the wrong time, and we're both particularly the woman, in a physical and mental state where this is not the right time or the right thing, when it is right, it becomes really good. And when a husband respects the wife, particularly in terms of her need for privacy and that period of time, all of a sudden, the time they are together is extraordinarily beautiful. Yeah.
And it also gives the husband and wife time to focus on the communication,
Right.
verbal communication.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
part of the relationship.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the verbal communication. Sometimes the verbal communications are a little strained, like a little argument, happens all the time. Ha, ho, ha, hoo, ha, hee, right? Little. Let's kiss and make up. Could we make up without kissing? Can we try that? Can we make up with communication and seichel and intelligence? Because kissing takes away from the whole communication. At the end of the day, what kissing really does is it's a massive form of communication. It's saying to the other person how much you love the other person. So, again, the idea is moderation means the time of abstinence is a mitzvah, the time of indulgence is a mitzvah, and both can be extreme. But in this extreme, it's got to be decided where, when, and how. Yom Kippur is a time for nothing, no food, or time of siesta, or today, the fast of today. On the other hand, food, Shabbat. 3 meals, not just 2. And not just 1 challah, 2. And a little bit extra wine there to make you feel good. That's how Shabbat should be. Shabbat should be a little indulgent. Yes, sir. And certainly when it comes to food, you want to say overindulgence make you real sick. It's feeding into obesity. And a totally lack of control. On the other hand, total abstinence will make you totally sick. So the answer is proper amounts and proper methods, proper ways, fork in the mouth, not groveling. Understand? The way to do things, to have a nice dinner, or to take someone out for a nice dinner, doesn't necessarily mean a whole heaping of food. It means good food, not necessarily lots of it. You see? But good means what? Means that the energy put inside, or the money paid for it, is worth it, because you're not. It's something that's truly delicious and enjoyable. Sleep. Well, if you don't sleep, you just can't function. On the other hand, if you continue to sleep, and you can't get up in the morning for shacharit, then you got a problem. Now I get up with there's an early minyan at 6 o'clock, a later minyan at 7 o'clock, and a third minyan at 8 o'clock for the early birds and the lady birds, and and then you got the 9 o'clock guys, you know, who stumble in there at 9 o'clock. Finally got out of bed, you know. Slothfulness, laziness. Where's the energy? Where's the joy? Where's the zest for life? Where's the pep? So obviously, when it comes to moderation, you should sleep a proper amount. Now the Rambam says that it should be anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. Someone can manage on 6, that's swell. Someone needs 8, that's also necessary. But certainly not more than that. And certainly, you have to be able to be truly strengthened in a manner of body control where you can sleep, let's say, less than 6 hours. And that can be done within health perspective, and that's not the end of the world. If it can be done properly and controlled properly. Frankly, eating too. I mean, there are people that eat less, generally speaking. And I guess the less factor overlooks the question of, well, I mean, I thought you're supposed to enjoy it, and you do enjoy it. You just enjoy less of it. The quantity doesn't necessarily breed quality. So, is it possible for mind over matter for a person to truly mentally be able to sleep less and eat less? Certainly. And those people that do are a whole lot more productive than those that don't. And certainly a whole lot more spiritual. And certainly a whole lot more connected to God, so to speak. But a minimum connection means a minimum of not oversleeping. But then again, there are times when you when you should have no sleep at all, such as.
We stayed all night to learn.
That's right, Shavuot. Can you have the control to totally deny something and show that you're in control so that when you do get your sleep and your rest, you truly enjoy it? Well, that's the same thing with a relationship between a husband and a wife. Can you have the kind of total control which totally restricts husband and wife, and both have this sense of commitment to that control so that when they are together, it's so truly beautiful. Because in so doing, what happens? What happens is they're realizing within each other how they both respected each other. That's what makes the relationship so beautiful in the first place. And so therefore, any time that you do an excess of it, you show control. And control is the name of the game. Moderation equals control. Miyut means controlled. Now, we did business, and we did
Family.
sex, and we did food, and we did sleeping. Conversation. There are people that gab all day. And we tell them, folks, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more, speak less. It's simple. Unless God would give you 2 mouths. He gave you 1 mouth, right? To be able to speak less and hear more. Listen to what's going on in the world. But you hear people that gab all the time. I mean, it happens to me oftentimes on a phone call. I mean, I'd like to answer you, but is the question over yet? I mean, it just gets, and you know what? I noticed in my, it's the personal observation. I noticed in my life about excessive conversation. The most frequently used word in excessive conversation. Want to guess? That's one of them. Like. Hard?
Aye.
Oh, aye. That's also frequently used. The word I found? Because. I gotta give a reason. Blah, 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 because. Blah, 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 blah. I heard what you said already. Because. I'll tell you now. Because if they don't, what because is for? I know. Excess conversation. Now, of course, it has to be admitted with truth that certain rabbis get up there and might get a little excessive themselves, yours truly included, and therefore we have to also learn that, frankly, in about 15 minutes of the speech, most people tune out. And that's about 15 minutes, pretty much the max of the Shabbat morning sermon. But again, the idea is moderation. And of course, in moderation, we said what? That control, no excess, meaning that what you do say should have meaning and power and contribution. Don't say things just for the heck of it. Don't say words that you don't mean. The three most frequently used words that have no meaning at all, just my experience, how are you? How are you? Who really cares? Do I really care how you are? No, I don't. But I'm supposed to say it, so I'll say it. So you, of course, say, well, I'm fine, brother, shit, right? And you really don't want to know how I feel? You got 20 minutes, I'll tell you how I feel. And so what you got to do is you got to get this perspective of knowing that speech is a gift from Hashem. It's the gift that produces the koach hadibur is that elevates a man over the animal, and therefore we need to use it wisely and effectively. And of course, when it comes to speech, there's also what we know now as forbidden speech. Lashon hara is forbidden speech. Talk about another person behind another person's back. That's absolutely a no-no. And there is no compromise on that. And that's to be taken to an extreme and to an excess. Zip on another person. Zip. Sometimes you want to say something nice about another person. That might not be a bad idea except for the fact that the person you're sharing it with doesn't like the other person. So when you say, oh, that person's really is wonderful, you've only stimulated him to say, he's a rotten bum. So you don't want to do that, do you? So therefore, less spoken about people altogether. And of course, what you really want to do in terms of mitzvah speech, that's the Torah teaching you. Speak in the words of Torah. Teach Torah. That's where speech ought to be. And that's where speech is meaningful, powerful, contributory, and quality. Certainly, anger, derision speech, name calling, nibble peh, and all forms of profanity are certainly out the window. They have no room in elegant people's lives. On the other hand, part of conversation is hearing. And we really should be patient to hear other people, what other people say, what other people's comments are, what other people's experiences are, and help validate people that way. And that makes the whole conversation positive. Sicha doesn't only mean talking or speech, it means conversation. And in conversation is a two-way deal. There's people hearing, people listening, people sharing with one another. And that's really the way you really want to maximize it, and that's how moderation works there. Moderation in humor. Miyut tzchok. Now humor is a positive thing, and it could be. It could also be a highly negative thing. I mean, if you take something that's holy and beautiful and make a joke of it, that's really, if nothing else, offensive. Now, how many clean comedians can you find in the world today that are clean, that are will not resort to throwing sex into the gutter? How many people can you find that, right? And so there's got to be some checks somewhere. There's got to be some restraint somewhere, some restriction somewhere. And in that regard, there is a positive sense of humor. And there is the idea of sharing a good thought in a humorous manner. The rabbis tell the story of Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva. He was speaking to the students, and the students fell asleep on him. So of course, us rabbis, we shouldn't feel so bad, because if they fell asleep on Rabbi Akiva, they certainly fell asleep on you. You understand? And they fell asleep on Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva had to wake him up. So he woke him up and he said, Esther on Purim became queen. She became queen to King Ahasuerus. And Ahasuerus was the king over 127 provinces. Now you know that she was the great-granddaughter of Sari Menu. And Sari Menu lived 127 years. Now that must be connection somewhere. All of a sudden the students woke up. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard in my life. What's 127 years of Sarah's life got to do with 127 states that Sarah's the queen over? So I don't know. I just woke you up. I had to say something funny, something goofy. And there is room for that. The Gemara says that Rabbah was a great Talmudic scholar. He used to go into the class and he was ready to deliver a sheer of depth and power and swiftness, and they had to be up for it. But he started off with a little joke. Guys, get at ease. I'm going to stress you out plenty. It's okay. Get at ease. Relax. So in this manner, you understand there is a positive value to good humor and a good joke. If we didn't have that, I'd be out of business. I had to tell a few good lines here and there. Sounds like I get a kick out of it anyway. So the idea is that there is value to this thing, and that's what moderation is. Moderation is control. Know what is appropriate, know what's inappropriate. Yeah.
What do you have to say, or what does the 48 Ways or Torah have to say in regard to if you have trouble with moderating, sleeping, or eating?
Work at it. That's the whole idea. The whole idea of 48 Ways is this is your goal. Get to it. Number one is the open mind. Well, not always open. Sometimes we got to catch ourselves. Train, work. This is, as I said earlier in the first session, Reb Noach, my Rebbe, would have the students do daily exercises and write notes to be able to implement and to work on them so they become better, that's all. No, it's not going to become better overnight. These are lessons or goals for us to aspire to. We're trying to become better people. No one becomes better overnight. You don't flick a switch and become better. You can flick a switch and it becomes dark or light. That you can do. But improvement and getting better, that's a lifelong process. It's a lifelong, because it's interesting, when I look back at my Rebbe, for instance, and see the kind of control that he had in different phases of his life, and I'd be envious. I'd say, wow, when will I get to be like that, But it was phenomenal to watch. It's really phenomenal to watch a person of that stature and see him with that kind of control in his life and that kind of ability to not just preach it, but actually live it. And that was the beauty of Rabbi Block. You saw him live it, and that's really how you. But he admitted himself. It took me years to work at it. And you're trying to become if you realize that moderation is the goal, if you believe this truth, if you believe what I'm saying as a truth, then incorporate it inside you and say, I want to do this. And every night before you go to bed, ask God for help. I want to become better. Help me become better. That's one of our prayers in the Shemon Esrei and Amidah. Ashivenu Avinu Torah Techa. Help us do tshuva. Help us become better. Return to the Torah. The constant growth process becomes almost exciting, because when you feel that you have changed, even in the slightest, and the growth is ever so small even, but you feel it, you feel the substance. Wow, are you encouraged to do more? Wow, I can do this. That's exciting. I can do this. I can become a better person. Now, through the process, you will meet people who are really, let's say, not clued in. That was number one, right? If either you're clued in or you're not. If you're not clued in, your mind's closed, you're never going anywhere. You're not growing. So all of a sudden, you meet a person who's really exactly goofy, whatever, and you say to the guy, hey, you don't say to the guy, you say it to yourself, this guy's off. I mean, you've met people off in your life. I mean, I'm not putting anybody down, I'm just saying. You met people that are a little goofy. And then you meet a person who's not really goofy, but he just has no perception of his own foolishness. Man walks into a party, and he thinks he's the talk of the town. He thinks he's the best thing in comedy since sliced bread. So he makes his way to the bar, and he got maybe a dozen people sitting at the bar, and he orders a drink, and he starts making a joke here, a joke there, and he says, and he's laughing uproariously, slapping people's back. What do you think of that? Ha ha ha! Hoo ha ha! He thinks he's really funny, but he doesn't see that slowly but surely people are leaving. They're off. 3, 4. He's left with 2 people, 3 people. He still thinks he's the funniest guy in town. They don't get it. They're stupid. He can't grow. He's going to do the same thing over and over again. Hey, guy, you're making a fool of yourself. Don't you realize that? So the idea is, wake up, smell the roses, and get the idea across. You can change it, but first you need to know that you got to change. And you got to believe you're not good enough, ever. Because if you do, then you're not going to grow anymore. No point in growing. But if you at the same time realize how much you've grown yesterday, that's so encouraging how much you can do today. So that's the idea of how to go about it. Anyway, just last point about the drug scene. There is the drugs are the worst things. I mean, now there is even positivity to the drugs. Doctor's got to use it. You are in pain, this, that, and that. So he uses it. I mean, they use morphine in a hospital for a terrible pain, whatever it is. There is such a thing as positivity to it. Certainly, illegally, it's wrong. And it is ever so destructive. And so you can become a drug addict, an alcoholic, a workaholic, a sex addict, a gambler addict, and on and on and on. And control is the name of the game. How do you control? Moderation. Moderation keeps things on an even keel. And how it starts to work for you. So you have to have direction and guidance. Drugs, talk to a doctor if you need help. I mean, alcohol, same thing. I mean, if you want to manage your diet, talk to a dietitian. People need help in getting themselves put together in these areas. You want to know how to have good relations with your husband and your wife? Talk to your Rebbe or Rebbitzin. That's the way to do it. So the idea is, of course, that these are the challenges that we meet. So if our system is to work, And if you do your thinking properly, and if you do really socially networked well, and you got a good education, don't let this beat you up. Because the first day in college, they're going to introduce you to the sororities and the fraternities and the parties and the all-nighters that will end up with 4 Fs on all of your report cards in the first course of your term in the university. And your father spent all that money and you flunked every course because you weren't doing any homework because you were busy partying. So again, you're going to meet those challenges. And in Israel, you go to the army, what they show you there. But and you find those seasoned veterans, a guy's in the army 6 months, and he shows you, let me show you what we can do around here, right? Watch out. You gotta know how to control. That's not necessarily for me. That's not what I want to get involved in. Because that can harm me, kill me, destroy me. Now, the next set of ways is called the mental issues. We do mental health in a very, very sensitive manner. However, there is no class next week or the week after because I'm going to New York. Because my daughter had a baby and I want to see the baby. So, right? So there's no class the following Tuesday, which will be, I assume, a non-Jewish holiday. And the following Tuesday was again another non-Jewish holiday. Now you know that the people who love making noisemakers on New Year's probably learned from Rosh Hashanah to when they blow the shofar, they want to blow their own shofar or something on January 1st or whatever it is. But that's not our shtick. So in any event,
January 8th, you'll be back.
That's right, January 8th, right. And that's what we'll continue on with mental health. That's a real sensitive issue. Please mark down the date. You won't want to miss it because, frankly, you'll find startling information about some of the things that plague us, how we identify it, and what we need to do to fight it off. And I'll tell you this, everyone is affected by it in some manner or another. Some more, some less. Some so excessively that, God forbid, they're really in trouble. Some a little bit less, but have issues or tendencies that they need to deal with. And we have some, the 40 ways teaches some great methods how to do it. Okay, thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you after I celebrate my Mazel Tov.